Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And as chairman of the British-Kazakh Society, it gives me enormous pleasure to welcome you all to this important BKS webinar, which is covering nearly 30 years of diplomacy between the United Kingdom and Kazakhstan. As you all know, the British-Kazakh Society aims to promote the very best of relations between Britain and Kazakhstan, including highlighting trade and investment opportunities and promoting cooperation between government, industry and finance. We essentially act as a conduit, and we place a strong emphasis on promoting international affairs and diplomacy. So this event falls very much within our remit. This year, as you all know, represents an historic milestone for Kazakhstan, marking the 30th anniversary of independence. The country has experienced significant economic, social, cultural, and diplomatic success over the past 30 years, and has also successfully navigated a number of challenges. The transformation of the country really has been extraordinary. The bilateral relationship is extremely strong, supported by all our speakers today, as well as other key figures such as Baroness Nicholson, who is the current PM's trade envoy, and indeed Lord Woolf. I was on the David Cameron visit in 2013 when the strategic partnership was signed. And the IGC has also been a very important part of the bilateral architecture. Today, as you know, we have three extraordinarily eminent speakers who've all got very special insight into the trends, mechanisms, and outcomes of diplomacy. They will speak in turn and have all kindly agreed to answer questions at the end. So our first speaker is Lord Astor, who's had a very distinguished parliamentary career, including as a defence minister between 2010 and 2015. He has been a PM's envoy to Kazakhstan and is currently the PM's envoy to Oman. He is also co-chair of the Kazakhstan APPG. Our second speaker, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome him, is His Excellency Erlan Idrissov. We're extremely fortunate to have such an eminent ambassador for Kazakhstan appointed to London. As you all know, he has served twice as foreign minister and successfully led Kazakhstan's candidacy to be a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council in 2017-18. He's been a very strong advocate, as you all know, for Kazakhstan on the world stage. And thirdly, it gives me enormous pleasure to welcome His Excellency Micheal Gifford, who has had a very distinguished career in the Foreign Office. He's served in Abu Dhabi, Oslo, Riyadh, and as ambassador to Yemen, North Korea, and now Kazakhstan. He sadly retires from the Foreign Office this year, but has had a really huge and positive impact on the bilateral relationship. So without further ado, may I call on Lord Astor to make his speech covering principally the APPG.
Rupert, thank you very much for that introduction. As a member of the Chairman's Advisory Group, I am delighted to support the excellent work of the British-Kazakh Society and to participate in this webinar about 30 years of diplomacy between the United Kingdom and Kazakhstan. The BKS is making a vital contribution to promoting and enhancing the bilateral relationship, and I very much welcome this webinar. I want to record my special congratulations to the board of BKS under the chairmanship of Rupert Goodman and the staff for the transformation and expansion of the Society's activities over recent years. It gives me great pleasure to welcome this series of high-level BKS webinars, which are doing so much to highlight understanding and cooperation in trade, investment, and culture between our two countries. I add my own welcome to the two distinguished ambassadors who are at the heart of the bilateral relationship. I have a particular interest in Kazakhstan, having been, as Rupert said, the Prime Minister's trade envoy, and am currently a member of the all-party parliamentary group for Kazakhstan. This group was first registered in 2015 with the objective of developing interparliamentary dialogue and to increase parliamentary knowledge about Kazakhstan. Bob Stewart, Member of Parliament, is the chairman of the group, and as Rupert said, I am the co-chair. Given the breadth and importance of the bilateral relationship, the Kazakhstan all-party parliamentary group is very active and has made many visits to Kazakhstan. Last year, we celebrated our 5th anniversary and are very focused on promoting parliamentary dialogue. We cover all areas of the bilateral relationship, including foreign affairs, trade and investment, science and education, intelligence and security, as well as defence policy. In this post-Brexit world, a Majlis government seeks to cooperate fully with our friends around the world, including Kazakhstan. And I look forward to further cooperation between the all-party parliamentary group and the British-Kazakh Society, and offer my congratulations to Kazakhstan on the 30th anniversary of independence. Thank you very much.
Lord Astor, thank you very much indeed for those wise words. Just so that all viewers know, there is a button to press if you want to have it in local language or English. So that button is, I think, on the top right-hand corner. Our next speaker, and it gives me huge pleasure to welcome him, is His Excellency Erlan Idrissov.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Rupert, dear Lord Astor, dear Ambassador Gifford, Michael, other friends, let me welcome you on this very nice New Year morning. Although it's a bit drizzling in London, and it's a summer temperature in Astana, -22. I think we all enjoy sitting in our warm offices or apartments, joining this webinar, and I think it is quite timely. First of all, let me use this opportunity to wish everyone the Happy New Year. As you know, Kazakhs follow also the Oriental symbolism in counting their years. Last year was the leap year, and by tradition and belief, leap years come with a number of calamities, and it proved true with this unfortunate pandemic. But the next year, or the already arrived year, is the year of the bull, and bull is the symbol of energy, success, and movement ahead. So I wish everyone full throttle during this year in all your endeavors, happiness to yourselves, happiness to your dear ones, and I hope that the pandemic will give in, and human partnership and cooperation will overcome this plague of the 21st century. Let me also congratulate our British friends with the very fortunate, very welcome, most wanted and awaited Brexit deal that was watched with great excitement throughout the world, including in Kazakhstan. And I think that now Britain has a huge plate of turning itself into a new global Britain, and we wish our British friends most successful achievement of this historic and strategic goal, and be assured that Kazakhstan is always there to be a strong partner of the new global Britain in all imaginable areas, particularly in trade and in commerce. Kazakhstan also has ushered the new year with a very important event. Just 2 days ago, we had the parliamentary elections. I was actually scratching my head here because just on the 5th of January, there was a huge announcement by Prime Minister Johnson that London and almost all UK goes into a very strict lockdown, and we immediately reached out to the Foreign Office to figure out how we do here, because we had on our list more than 500 Kazakh citizens to vote. Of course, Foreign Office also had a dilemma, and we came up with a Solomon decision not to deprive Kazakh citizens of their constitutional right to vote, but at the same time to make every effort to make sure that all safety measures are observed. So we had elections last Sunday from 7 to 8 p.m., 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and we had quite a good attendance. Of course, not the attendance we usually have during the normal times, but it was about 200 people, which is quite high for these pandemic times. And we were fortunate that there were no excesses, and people came, young people, including from outside of London. I was surprised. They took their time, they took their effort, they took their expenses to come and cast their vote in this parliamentary election, which was absolutely voluntary. And we warned our citizens that if they feel unsafe in traveling to the embassy, that's their choice. We will take this with understanding. But I think Brexit and Kazakh elections, they are symbolically signifying important future agendas for both nations. Brexit is filling everyone with hopes. Our elections signify our commitment to further reforms. I think it is quite important. And it is quite fortunate and timely that the British-Kazakh Society, of which we have very senior co-patrons, of which we have very distinguished honorary presidents. I mean, of course, British ambassador in Kazakhstan, and we have such a growing leadership of the society and the membership in the society. We are happy to see that despite the pandemic, the activities of the BKS have been there. We had a number of seminars, webinars, important events, and I hope that this year, particularly post-pandemic, will be much more visible. I congratulate BKS on starting this series, Kazakhstan at 30. This is very timely and fortunate and useful because it will educate many young people of our achievements, of our partnership and cooperation. And I hope that a series of events during this Kazakhstan at 30 will be a success. Actually, Rupert, as you know, we started the Kazakhstan at 20 series a little bit earlier. We had the first webinar on Kazakhstan at 30 with Grigory Marchenko, my old friend. Then I was shaven, and he had his beard, his traditional beard, and we had a first fantastic webinar recalling how the financial system of young, newly born Kazakhstan was established. Today we have the kickoff, the Kazakhstan 30 2021 year. I think, as President Tokayev said earlier in 2020, that 2030 will be a time very important time for Kazakhstan. Of course, it's the 30th anniversary, but he invited the public to celebrate the 30th anniversary not by spectacles, pageant events, something like that. He rather invited everyone to reflect what we have achieved, what we have done rightly, what mistakes we have had to go through, to recollect and take a stock of everything which we had to do during our coming of ages during these 30 years. I think that's the mood which we will try to keep. The best way to reflect on the 30th anniversary, 30 years of Kazakhstan independence is actually President Tokayev's article. He came up with a very meaningful, very well written, broad article on the 5th of January in our central media piece, Yegemen de Kazakhstan. And I wanted just to go through his reflections of the 30 years of Kazakhstan independence. He divided 30 years into 3 decades, and he highlighted that each decade was a very important stage in Kazakhstan's development. First decade, of course, was the decade when the foundations of the young nation have been laid down. The state symbols were established. The beginnings, the foundations of the governance system was established. Importantly, the national currency was adopted in Kazakhstan, and it is quite remarkable that Deliaru, not the government agency, but a very outstanding global company, was very handy and close with Kazakhstan in this very special project. It was actually a secret project, as we recalled with Grigory Marchenko. Deliaru printed new Kazakh tenge, and they were airlifted in total secrecy to Kazakhstan to make sure that over one morning, overnight, all the banks and all the outlets and the public got the new currency. That was a historic moment in our development during the first decade. Of course, military forces have been established in Kazakhstan during the first decade, as recalled by President Tokayev. We have adopted the first constitution, which of course then went through the amendment, because the first constitution had the traces and remnants of the Soviet system. Therefore, it needed further brushing. And but the fact that Kazakhstan, as an independent state, adopted the first constitution was absolutely important. The first decade was the period when Kazakhstan has established diplomatic relations with key countries of the world. Now we enjoy diplomatic relations with more than 200 countries. Of course, the geography of our diplomatic presence is much broader today than it was then, but those days were the first days of Kazakhstan's recognition as an entity of the international law. UK was among the first to establish their diplomatic presence in Kazakhstan. I clearly remember those days when foreign diplomats, we didn't have any estate and properties for the embassies to take as their premises, and embassies had to operate and live from the Soviet-built hotels. That was a very funny period in our history. Of course, we really understood the challenges faced by British foreign diplomats, including British diplomats, but that was a funny period. I remember the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was located in a small hut, literally speaking, in a small hut, and we were squeezed, but being squeezed, we had to handle issues of huge magnitude, starting from building the first diplomatic nationhood down to tackling and handling the difficult issue of nuclear arms. Visitors like Vice President Al Gore, Secretary Hurd, Douglas Hurd, Secretary Jim Baker, my good friend, they were all frequent visitors to Kazakhstan those days when we were reaching out to the world, offering ourselves as a new entity, and we are very thankful to our foreign partners for helping us in that period, for recognizing us as an entity, equal entity of the diplomatic law, international relations, and establishing diplomatic relations with us. Along with that, of course, Kazakhstan, during the first decade, became member of key international organizations. First of all, the United Nations. In March of 1992, our first ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Arstanbekova, made the announcement and made a formal application and formal request at the big General Assembly Hall in New York, in UN building, and that was 2nd of March, the day of our acceptance in the United Nations as a full-fledged member. That is a historic moment, of course. The first decade also saw many growth moments. As you may recall, Kazakhstan before having adopted the 2050 strategy, went through the strategy 2030. So the 2030 strategy was adopted during the first decade of our independence. That was our attempt to envision our movement ahead. And of course, we wanted to build a liberal, politically, economically sound, technically, technologically advanced nation. That was our goal, and this goal was reflected in the strategy 2030. Importantly, we started dealing the issues of Kazakh state borders with other countries. As you know, Kazakhstan is a landlocked country, and we have very extensive borders with our big neighbors. One of the largest landlocked borders in the world is between Kazakhstan and Canada and the Kazakhstan and Russia. It's more than 5,000 miles. It's an enormous border. To the north of Kazakhstan, to the east of Kazakhstan, we have another enormous border with our Chinese friends. So to the south, we have Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and of course, there is a Caspian Sea. So first decade laid the foundation of that important effort. We focused on our border with China. We actually laid down the foundation for a successful work which was completed during the second decade of our independence. And I personally have good memories, personal memory, because I was part of negotiating teams both on the land borders with our neighbors and on the Caspian. I was for a long time a chief negotiator for the Caspian negotiations, which fortunately have ended in 2018 by signing the Caspian Legal Convention in the city of Aktau. Of course, first decade, we should mention our strong anti-nuclear stance. That was the time when Kazakhstan denounced nuclear weapons. Earlier on, when we were still part of the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan's president, Nursultan Nazarbayev, by his decree, despite of the Moscow authorities, closed the nuclear testing site in Semipalatinsk. And right with the first day of independence, we formally, very loudly declared our anti-nuclear stance. Now Kazakhstan is recognized as one of the champions in nuclear non-proliferation and nuclear disarmament. And that was very strongly present during our first days of independence. I mentioned to you that the visitors like Al Gore and Douglas Hurd, that was of course related to the nuclear matter. Another important aspect is our economic reforms. Kazakhstan came out from the Soviet Union, which had the centrally planned economy. And of course, the first decade was a very huge effort to bring, transfer the country to the market economy tracks. That was a huge effort. That was a complete novelty, no experience, no memory, no human resources to do that huge job. But President Nazarbayev has built, had a vision. He has built a very strong, well-educated team of young technocrats who delivered on this task. The institution of private property was created, was propagated, and was affirmed during this first decade of Kazakhstan independence. That was a core effort in enhancing and enforcing the market economy in Kazakhstan. Of course, I have to mention the move to the new capital. That was a strategic move. The decision was taken with labor, with abstraction on behalf of many associates of President Nazarbayev, but he persevered, and he eventually, at the end of the day, he proved that he was strategically right. Now, we are very proud of our new capital, which was named after him because of that huge effort. As a recognition, it's not kind of a something close to personality cult or something like that. This is just a tribute by the nation for this very strategic and envisionary decision. That we have established the National Fund, Young Kazakhs, the Bolashak Fund was established. Alijan, for example, he is a Bolashak student, right? And the Bolashak was established then, again, with huge difficulties for Nazarbayev. I remember him recalling when he went to the parliament and asked for first $10 million. It was 93 or 94. And the old parliament, which passed that first constitution, which was kind of Soviet-type constitution, they refused. They said, why we should take our money, government money, to pay for someone's studies? They will run away. Why we should waste our money? We have so many headaches now. And Nazarbayev said, no, you are wrong. We have to look into the future. We are now planting the seeds of the future. And he persevered and he got those $10 million. That was a huge amount of money those days for Kazakhstan. And the first batch of Kazakh students, Bolashak students, started to study abroad. And UK is one of the most favorite destinations for Bolashak students. And now we have tens of thousands of Bolashak students already graduated, and they work for Kazakh economy. And many more thousands are working and are studying and will study in foreign universities. And they have a great choice. There is no pressure. They are free to choose the best venues for their studies at their preference. If they want to go to Western Europe or Western world, they're free to go. And as I said, UK, second US, these are two most favorite destinations. It is interesting to observe that Asian countries are also coming now to the radar of our students. China is a very wanted destination, Singapore, Malaysia. Of course, we have students in France, we have students in Germany and other European countries. So we are very proud of this huge strategic decision, which is paying back now. Another important event of the first decade was building the identity of Kazakhstan. And we have initiated a program of the called Oral Months, which is the program which invited the ethnic Kazakhs from who lived abroad in many countries, including Europe. In London, we have about 50 families of those old Kazakhs who moved into UK earlier on in 50s. We have a huge community in France, for example, Germany, Sweden, but many of them live in Russia, Uzbekistan, and countries, of course, like Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan. So we invited all our compatriots to come back to their historic motherland, and we have allocated huge budget resources to support that move, which of course was important for Kazakhstan, because those days many Slavic peoples were leaving Kazakhstan for their historic lands, like Ukrainians, like Russians, like Belarusians. But therefore, to balance that migration flows, we have come up with this very important and very useful, in the end, and successful Oralman program. That is the roundup of the first decade. The second decade, of course, was the decade of the quick picking up growth for Kazakhstan. And we have, building upon what we have established as a foundation during the first decade. We focused on our history. We focused on our national identity. Of course, we continued our work with delimitation of our borders, fixing them, and the second decade actually saw the complete fixing of our borders and legally fixing and recognizing them internationally. I would like to highlight that Kazakhstan has focused on foreign investments during the second decade. We have attracted, by now, we have attracted more than $300 billion US of investment, but the kind of jumpstart for this important work was during the second decade, and we focused on building infrastructure, our internal industrial capacity, building our human capital, advanced human capital. So the second decade was a period of great success. Our growth rates in the second decade were, the record growth was 13.3%. I think in 2007 or 8. No, earlier on than that, before the crisis. And that was a fantastic period of hopes and fruition of those ideas which we have initiated during the first decade. The third decade is almost the current period. Of course, we carried out with massive national programs of growth. We have segmented them into sectors. Infrastructure was one, for example, of the important ones, Nurlizhol, which we are now matching with the Chinese BRI. There was a Nurlizher program, which is about Kazakh identity. We have focused on public house building. We have focused on education. That was a very important time for Kazakh education reform efforts. Now we are entering the fourth decade. The third decade saw the initiation of the 2050 national strategy. We are a rare country which dreams that far. Recently at the Ambition Summit, by the way, President Tokayev dreamt even further. By the way, it is quite symbolic and was welcomed by our British friends that Kazakhstan was the only country from the post-Soviet space to participate in the Ambition Summit as preparation for the COP26. And President Tokayev came up with very serious commitments, including, for example, decarbonizing our economy by 2060 and building or planting 2 billion trees. 2 billion trees in Kazakhstan. That's a huge effort. And I think that is the first instance when Kazakhstan jumped beyond 2050 horizon. So we are now looking into 2060 in our greening effort. I think this, of course, time is not sufficient to give even a brief overview of 30 years, but I gave you the highlights of our focus during our growth in over the last 30 years. Of course, the major conclusion I do for myself, for example, is that we should be very proud about how much we have achieved, how much vision was put into that, how much physical effort, mental effort was put into realizing those dreams and goals. We should be proud of that, but we should also realize that Kazakhstan has many pockets and areas for further growth and perfection. That's understood at every level. That's first of all understood at the level of top leadership of the country. As President Nazarbayev, Elbasi, and President Tokayev in their remarks, they always stress that democracy is not they say it's a process, it's a destination which we have to go and aim at. So this is important to understand that we are in a permanent transit to perfect our society, our institutions, our economy, our human capital. Human capital is the core focus for the government of Kazakhstan, and I think this year will help us to once again revisit those historic moments in our history, recent history, and by living through them, we will energize ourselves to move further ahead. Let me also conclude by saying that out of this 30 years, of course, for me and our embassy, a special place was Kazakh-British partnership. And we should be absolutely proud of this partnership. As I told, UK was among the first, very, very first to recognize Kazakhstan. And that was a very important political gesture for young Kazakhstan. We are very grateful, and we will always remember that. Over the years of our partnership, and we mark the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations with UK next January. This January, in a few days, we mark the 29th anniversary. We'll do it in a working format, but next year I hope that we'll have a small Pajang, Rupert, to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Kazakh-British relationship. But let me briefly, because I'm running out of time, briefly tell you that UK is firmly a strong trade partner for Kazakhstan, within top 10 trade partners of Kazakhstan, and strong investor in Kazakh economy. It's within top 5, 6 top investors into Kazakhstan. We have developed a whole tool set of instruments in our bilateral relations. First of all, of course, it's a strategic political dialogue at the level of foreign ministers. I remember I started that dialogue with the then Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, and it continues, and we are happy. We hope that Secretary Rapp and our Foreign Minister will be able to meet this year in the post-pandemic kind of environment to continue this dialogue. We have an important and rare for the Soviet space with Britain Intergovernmental Commission, Economic Commission. It is having already the 7th session. We had the 7th session just a month ago. Minister Jayawardena and our Deputy Foreign Minister Aydarov, they led a big team of economic agencies of Kazakhstan and UK on many areas of importance, and we have quite robust agenda. We have the Business Council chaired by Baroness Nicholson and head of Samruk Kazana. We also have the all-party parliamentary APPG for Kazakhstan, of which Lord Astor is the co-chair, and our good friend Bob Stewart, who actually was eager to go to Kazakhstan for parliamentary elections, but because of the, logistical aspects, we couldn't find the flights, frankly speaking, convenient flights. There was one flight, but that was not very convenient from different aspects. Therefore, we had to forget the idea of a group of MPs traveling to Kazakhstan for the elections. But I should tell that Britain is, and will remain an important partner for Kazakhstan. It is quite symbolic that Kazakhstan emerges with its new agenda for growth, and Britain emerges with its new agenda for new global Britain. I think they should be, there are many ways. The history of our relations shows that there should be and must be very strong ways of synergizing those two national strategies of two great countries. I once again salute the Society for kicking out of the Kazakhstan at 20 webinars. I wish everyone the most successful year. We, of course, at the embassy have a very ambitious plan to celebrate, focusing on political events, cultural events. We hope that Foreign Minister will be able to visit Kazakhstan, UK, and then later President Tokayev is also on our wish list to visit the United Kingdom. We are almost about finishing negotiating our new trade agreement. It's called Strategic Partnership Agreement with the United Kingdom. So there are important reasons for President Tokayev and Foreign Minister Tleverdi to come to the United Kingdom. So our agenda will be full, and most of that agenda this year will be dedicated to Kazakhstan 30 theme. And I would like to welcome every one of you and all other participants to watch and follow our website and be our guests at our multiple events. Thank you very much.
Erlan, thank you very much indeed. That was a very comprehensive tour de force of the last 30 years. So thank you very much indeed for that. And it now gives me enormous pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mike Gifford. The floor is yours, Mike.
Well, Rupert, thank you very much indeed. Lord Astor, Your Excellency, Master Idrissov, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a real pleasure for me to be taking part in this webinar, and I'd like to echo the thanks of Lord Astor and the Ambassador for this event. It seems to me that the BKS has been instrumental in keeping alive and remembering and celebrating the various important anniversaries in our bilateral relationship. Speaking personally, I've had experience of a number of these friendship societies with various countries, and I can assure you that the BKS is absolutely one of the one of the best out there. So congratulations to you, Rupert, and to everyone involved. Now, I can really only claim to speak with some authority on about sort of 10% of this today's subject, because I've been in my current job for 3 of the past 30 years. But it seems to me that in this important year, the BKS has done a very good thing, which is in 2 respects, really. Firstly, being ahead of the game. As the ambassador reminded us, we have the rest of this year to go before we reach the actual 30th anniversary of Kazakhstan's independence, and a little longer to wait to the 19th of January 2022 to reach the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between us. But it is a very, very important year. The second point, I think, is one of ambition, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that. I mean, I think covering 30 years and even a series of webinars is ambitious, and I was impressed by Erlan, by your 30 decades, and I think it must have been 20 minutes. I don't think I can quite match that, but I will do my best. But the point is, I think that ambition is for me, is a key value for Kazakhstan, and we've heard examples of that in its development touched on by the ambassador. And you can see it in the history, you can see it, I think, more recently, and you can certainly see it in the future of our relationship. And just drawing on some of the things that His Excellency said, and this is in no particular order, I think I'd very much endorse the points made about building Kazakhstan's national identity and the key national institutions following the shock of the fall of the USSR all those years ago. And let's not forget, I think, that how inauspicious Kazakhstan's beginnings were. I mean, there were no guarantees at that particular point in time that any of the countries emerging from the former Soviet Union would succeed or would be viable. And with hindsight, looking back, of course, we can point to the opportunities as well as the challenges. But at the time, it was a very, very difficult period, and the ambassador's already touched on many aspects of that, from the currency to the denuclearization and so on. Sitting here in Nur-Sultan, I think I should also echo what the ambassador said about the establishment of Astor, now Nur-Sultan, as the capital. And traveling around, even in -22, which it is today, traveling around this great city, I'm delighted that so many of the iconic buildings here are the work of design by British architects, with perhaps Lord Foster being the most well-known and the most prominent. And the UK's involvement in Kazakhstan's capital is continuing today. We have a British town planning, urban planning company, Space Syntax, who last month handed over to the Akimat, to the local authorities here, their proposals for the next phase of the capital's development. And that will involve better zoning of the capital, involve improvements in the greening of the capital, and making it even more livable for the population. Other points we could touch on. I mean, Kazakhstan, as looking out internationally, has been the first Central Asian country to host an OSCE summit in 2010. 2018, I recall Kazakhstan chairing the United Nations Security Council very successfully. We discussed before the BKS events, I know, the work of the Astor International Financial Centre, and I think for me that is also a tremendous achievement. I mean, the AIFC has been a hugely important economic project over the past 3 years, and is going from strength to strength. And its links with the City of London, the English legal system, and British expertise generally, I think gives a sense of confidence and predictability to Kazakhstan's foreign investors and trading partners. I was looking at the figures, which have been up-to-dated recently. Almost 300 cases successfully resolved through the AIFC court and the arbitration centre. 9 court judgments, well over 280, almost 290 arbitration and mediation cases settled and also enforced in Kazakhstan. I'm also told that over 4,000 commercial contracts now contain provision and procedures which an arbitration system. I mean, that's a fantastic achievement in a very short time, and that is directly as a result of this ambition and also as a result of British expertise. In terms of foreign policy, I mean, touched on again by Ambassador Idrissov, I think the region and the world generally benefits enormously from Kazakhstan's independence, its openness, and its willingness to reach out to its international partners across the world and seek good relations with everybody. As you'll all know, Kazakhstan has a unique geographical, historical, and cultural perspective, which I believe gives it a great deal to offer the international community and individual partner nations. And that openness in its foreign policy is mirrored by the trading relationships it has. So in the case of the United Kingdom, we benefit £2 billion worth of exports of goods and services that were exported by British companies in the past year. In turn, Kazakhstan, the companies exported £566 million worth of goods and services into the United Kingdom. And all of that trading activity supports companies and jobs and the livelihoods of individuals, which of course are so important. As we've heard, I mean, a large part of Kazakhstan's success over the past 30 years is down to the vision and the energy of First President Nursultan Nazarbayev, who has successfully steered this country to its present position over many years. And I'd like to say publicly that President Nazarbayev has been a good friend to the UK and has had numerous meetings with senior British politicians and public figures over the years. I'm going to list them, but actually there are too many to list. But it started with, I think, with Margaret Thatcher on the 31st of August 1991, when she stopped over in Almaty and held talks with Mr. Nazarbayev. Of course, at that stage, she was no longer in government, but still very much a major world figure. And this was seen, I think, at the time as, quite rightly, as an important signal of President Nazarbayev's growing and important status on the international stage. We had other meetings in the early 90s. There was a visit by President Nazarbayev to the UK in 1991. And that was interesting because it was treated, I think, by the United Kingdom authorities as a state visit, although in fact at that point the first president was still leader of a Soviet republic just a few weeks before independence. And more recently we've had other visits and contacts as well. We've heard about David Cameron's visit in 2013 and again President Nazarbayev's visit in 2015 to the UK. And in addition to all that, as the ambassador said, our ministers and senior officials, whether from the Foreign Ministry, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, or the Department for International Trade, are constantly meeting in the course of normal business, whether in formal set piece type arrangements through the Intergovernmental Commission, or more informally in person. And unfortunately now it's more often than not virtually. I think we're continuing to push the boundaries on this. But I do think that Kazakhstan is one of those countries which has a high degree of capability in using the virtual tools we have at our disposal. And each of those events, each of those meetings which has taken place has produced agreements and greater understanding. But it's not just about the work of diplomats. I think diplomats will always argue for diplomacy and for talking in the same way that perhaps the lawyers will argue for legal action, and maybe, I don't know, surgeons will argue for surgery. And there's incidentally no doubt in my mind that diplomacy has changed a lot in the past 10 months or so. Perhaps that's a subject of another webinar. But some of these parts of the UK relationship with Kazakhstan, the strategic partnership that we have happened organically, of their own accord, through mutual interest. And it's the job of diplomats and ambassadors and governments to speak up and support that and enable those things to take place. But the thousands of Kazakh alumni who have benefited from a British university education, for example, is the result of a strategic decision taken by Kazakhstan all those years ago, and continues continued commitment. The work that's going on, for example, I should mention to introduce the British model of civil aviation into Kazakhstan is going very well. We have British shareholding in Air Astor, the state carrier, and many successful commercial ventures, including successful IPOs and privatizations of Kazakh companies on the London Stock Exchange, and there's more of that to come. Just looking ahead briefly for a moment, one of the things I just wanted to touch on was investment in the opposite direction. We hear a lot about British investment in Kazakhstan. Samuruk Kazina, the National Sovereign Wealth Fund, has plans to expand its portfolio of international investment from 4% to 20% of its total fund by 2028. Now, my colleagues in Department of International Trade have done their sums and have worked out that represents a possible total of around £8 billion sterling of Kazakh investment, which could find a home in Britain to support British projects and indeed British jobs. And that figure is a very ambitious one. I mean, there's that word again. But as I said, ambition is a hallmark of Kazakhstan, and I see no reason why ambition shouldn't work in the opposite direction as well. So I very much hope that we will see more Kazakh investment in Britain, and of course, as well as in the opposite direction. Looking ahead a bit more, I mean, ambassadors are not really supposed to predict the future, and I'll try not to do that. But I should just say that President Nazarbayev's work has, of course, been carried on by President Tokayev, and we've been following with great interest the work of the Supreme Council on Reforms. And I'm delighted that the Kazakh government has recruited such an experienced and senior public figure as Asuma Chakrabarti as deputy chairman of that council, the Supreme Council. He is councillor to the president. That body, the Supreme Council on Reform, brings together, I think it's 8 ministers and senior officials, and has a very big agenda in terms of economic and social reform. And certainly in my discussions with Asuma Chakrabarti, I can sense a real appetite for further change. Looking ahead still further, I think I would point to 2 broad areas for focus and 2 challenges, and they've been touched on before. They are also areas which are difficult and which also will require a lot of effort and the same kind of political will which the ambassador spoke about. And the first one is economic, one is political. The first one is climate change. And the ambassador was quite right to refer to the Climate Ambition Summit co-hosted by the UK last month, at which President Tokayev said that the fight against climate change is both urgent and existential. And in the last, he went on to say that Kazakhstan is highly vulnerable to man-made climate change. And despite having come very far in its development, the economy here, of course, is still very reliant on fossil fuels. He went on to use the words that I thought were very interesting. He said, "We have no choice but to face the twin challenges of refocusing our economy away from fossil fuels and tackling climate change at the same time." That commitment, that 2060 commitment to achieve carbon neutrality, I think is a very big shift in Kazakh policy. Certainly the UK supports it. We are very happy to offer our expertise and our knowledge on that to Kazakhstan as we face that issue together. The second, more political one, I think, is also difficult, and it's to push ahead even further on political reform, pluralism, and fundamental freedoms, and to embed respect for human rights in the day-to-day practices of officials and individuals, as well as in the constitutional law and practice. And I should say, first of all, here that Kazakhstan's made very good progress in certain areas. I would absolutely applaud the decision this month to abolish the death penalty for all but the most exceptional crimes by acceding to the second optional protocol of the main UN Human Rights Convention, the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. And effectively what that does is turn a moratorium on the death penalty into a permanent ban. The first item on the BBC News today was of the execution of a lady in the United States. And I think that the step by Kazakhstan, frankly, is something that a lot of other countries would do very well to follow. So absolutely, I want to register our support for that. On the elections, I had the pleasure of going out and observing the elections to the Majlis on Sunday with other international observers. And you will have seen that the OSCE International Observer Mission did not really pull its punches in its assessment of the elections, which were, as it said, very smoothly run, efficiently run, good provision for public health and positive aspects, such as good voter information, training of election officials, and so on. However, nevertheless, they did touch on they described it as a missed opportunity to present more of a genuine political choice for the Kazakh voters. If you listen to the press conference that they had, they also made the point, I think, which is very much in the forefront of our minds, which is that these things do take time to achieve. And again, this is something I think where the UK, through its parliamentary links, through our own experience, is very, very happy to work with Kazakhstan in the future. As the ambassador said, democracy is a destination, and we are looking forward to hearing President Tokayev's address to the Majlis, which I think is happening this week on Friday, when I understand further reforms are going to be announced. In conclusion, I think I'd like to say that national independence to me and national sovereignty are really quite precious things. It's been much discussed in the United Kingdom over the past few years, and I wouldn't want to make any too obvious and simplistic parallels between the UK's departure from the European Union and Kazakhstan's very different history. But it is the case, as we've heard, that the British government now sees its future very much in a global context, as an independent sovereign trading nation, outward-looking and ready to form partnerships with other countries and trading partners. That certainly includes Kazakhstan in that. And I think I certainly subscribe to the view that it's what you do with your independence and your sovereignty that really counts. So Kazakhstan does matter to the UK. I wish Kazakhstan every congratulation on the 30th anniversary of its independence in this important year. And it's not really, just being conventionally diplomatically polite when I say that Kazakhstan, I believe, has achieved far more in one generation, in 30 years, than many countries managed to do in several. And I believe there's still a great deal more diplomacy, a great deal more cooperation, and good things to come. Thank you very much indeed.
Mike, thank you very much indeed. Those were serious insights you've given us, and we're very grateful for that. We've got a few minutes left for questions. We've got a huge number of questions, but actually a lot of the questions have been already answered by the very comprehensive speeches that have already been given. So what I'm going to do is just take out a couple of questions and then ask for brief answers from both our panelists. Lord Astor's had to go to House of Lords business, so he has his left. So one question I would just ask both of you: what is Kazakhstan's single biggest achievement in the diplomatic arena over the past 30 years? Erlan, a brief answer from you.
Placing Kazakhstan on the map, global map, as a serious, reliable, cooperative, forward-looking partner.
Excellent. Mike?
I would agree with that. I think Kazakhstan's strategic position, its history, and its culture give it a unique insight, and I think its diplomacy is very active. We've seen that in a number of different areas, and its work on disarmament, its work on counterterrorism. And while we may not agree on the details sometimes. The UK is a nuclear power, after all. We're a member of the P5 and so on. But we do applaud that active diplomacy which Kazakhstan puts on the international stage. So I very much agree with what the ambassador said.
Excellent. The next question, again, brief answers, and it's been covered to some extent already in your speeches. What is the impact of Brexit on relations between the UK and Kazakhstan?
I think.
All right. Well, shall I take that one?
Yes.
Yes, Mike, please.
Yeah, none of our cooperation with Kazakhstan has really depended on UK membership of the European Union. British companies still trade here. Kazakh companies still trade with the UK. All the cooperation is ongoing. The reference to this new strategic partnership and cooperation agreement is to provide continuity from with what we had when we were a member of the European Union. So I think my personal view is I think Brexit and the fact we're no longer a member of the European Union provides us with a huge opportunity to act more quickly and to expand our cooperation still further.
Let me add a few words. I think I agree with Mike. Brexit, we see, and we have been saying this from day one during the process of Brexit, that Brexit presents an opportunity for us, and we'll be absolutely eager to use those opportunities. I think Kazakhstan was the only country from the post-Soviet space welcoming formally and officially the signing of the deal through the official statement of the Foreign Ministry, welcoming the Brexit deal and highlighting the importance of UK as the new global partner for Kazakhstan, and highlighting also the importance of continued strong partnership with the European Union. So I think this deal will opens many new opportunities, particularly given the central heartland location of Kazakhstan on the huge growing traffic between Western Hemisphere to Asia. Kazakhstan is the bridge and the hub on that traffic, and Brexit will create many more new opportunities in that respect. In fact, I'm meeting after this webinar with a group which we will be discussing those opportunities, particularly, for example, in the trilateral format, Kazakhstan, UK, and China, how to work together around BRI initiative and make it a success.
One final question. The UK has been one of Kazakhstan's major trading partners over the past 30 years. Which sectors will lead the way in the future? Mike, do you want to have a go at that one?
Well, the trading relationship is traditionally been based on hydrocarbons, but as we've heard, I think the global economy is changing. President Tokayev, I know, has commented, I think, that this long cycle of oil being the dominant energy source, I think, is coming to an end. That oil and gas will remain very, very important for the years to come, and I personally expect a lot of contracts in that and work and success in that field. I think it will become more broad-based. We are looking at healthcare and education. Financial services and professional services are hugely important. There is a lot of scopes, so I think I would pick out one particular sector. If we can help, and if British companies can help in this transformation and reorientation of the Kazakh economy on a more sustainable basis, and I think that is a huge strength for the UK economy, and I think it's also something Kazakhstan needs. So there are lots of opportunities.
I agree. Our wish that energy is not the over-dominant factor in our commercial relationship. We all move into the post-industrialized digital world, and we hope that the pattern of our trade and commercial relationship will change accordingly. Digital economy, everything related to digital economy, everything related to the post-industrial world, and technological advancement should be the focus of our relationship. That's our dream and our goal. I should also mention, of course, I agree that education is crucially important because we are moving towards the new century, new world. Therefore, young, educated, better educated people are a must in this effort. Financial services with Astana Financial Center is, of course, a must, and it should continue to grow and perfect itself. Let me add that Suma Chakrabarti, as the deputy chair of the Supreme Council of the Economic Reforms, helped by Lord Maud and Lord Hammond, they also were part of the first meeting of the council late last year. They will help perfecting our cooperation in the financial services, particularly with the Brexit. There are lots of speculations about how viable financial services of London will continue to be. I would also add to this need agriculture. Kazakhstan is a very land resource and agriculture resource rich country. UK possesses huge potential in processing and standards. Therefore, I think we should make every effort to make sure that respective businesses are brought together in the agricultural sphere. That will be our mutual contribution to the global fight with food security. Kazakhstan has lots of space, lots of organic potential, both in animal husbandry, in cultivation. We have nearby huge markets of China, the growing opportunities to reach the huge Indian market. Therefore, we have to focus on those areas and use Kazakhstan not as the end user destination, because our market is quite small, 18 million people. We should use Kazakhstan as a hub, as a jump board to do businesses, successful businesses in new technological advanced areas around us, around bigger area which surrounds Kazakhstan.
Erlan, thank you very much indeed. And I now sadly have to bring this webinar to a close. There are many other questions, and we'll try and address those perhaps at future meetings. But look, I'm very grateful to Roger Holland, Jeffrey Temple and David Skeels for helping to bring this webinar to fruition. And also to our new membership secretary, Alijan, who we've referred to, who was appointed just a few days ago and has done a wonderful job to bring this together. My very special thanks go to all our distinguished panelists and for their insight and for answering the questions so candidly. Thank you also to all our viewers, and please visit the BKS website for future meetings. The next webinar, BKS webinar, will focus on judicial reform, and we plan to include the Minister of Justice, so that'll be coming up in the next month or so. But look, again, my personal thanks, particularly to Erlan and Mike for giving of their valuable time and giving some really very impressive and interesting insights. So thank you all very much indeed, and we hope this has been part of the boosting of the bilateral relationship. So thank you all, and we look forward to convening soon. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Michael,
Bye.
stay warm
Thank
there in Kazakhstan, in Nur Sultan.